Overview. The radio altimeter system provides continuous accurate indication of terrain clearance during approach and landing from a radio altitude of 2,500 feet down to touchdown. A dual radio altimeter system is installed, each consisting of a dual-channel monitored transceiver suitable for Cat 3A approaches, 2 antennas, one for transmit and one for receive. Introduction. The radio altimeters transmit a continuous downward signal from the transmit antenna, which is reflected from the surface back to the receive antenna. The height of the aircraft above the surface is then calculated from the time taken for the signal to return. The radio altimeters are operational at all altitudes, but do not provide outputs to any aircraft systems above 2,500 feet AGL. Radio altitude is displayed on the associated EFIS PFDs. Number 1 radio altitude on the left PFD and number 2 radio altitude on the right PFD. As well as being provided for display on EFIS, radio altitude is also provided for the following systems. The radio altimeters are controlled through the avionics master switches. Presentation of radio altitude. The radio altitude is displayed in the bottom half of the PFD, normally in green. When the aircraft is weight on wheels, the readout indicates 0 feet. Decision height, DH, is displayed in the bottom right-hand corner of each PFD in cyan, and may be set independently between 0 and 500 feet using the decision height knob on the associated EFIS dimming panel. If the control is turned fully clockwise, the decision height is set to 500 feet. If rotated fully anti-clockwise, it is removed altogether. Radio altitude is indicated every 5 feet below 200 feet, increasing to every 10 feet between 200 and 1,000 feet. Above 1,000 feet, it is indicated every 50 feet. Above 2,500 feet AGL, radio altitude and decision height set are removed from both PFDs. During cruise, decision height may be set for an approach by turning the associated decision height control. If the decision height control is then left unchanged for 3 seconds or more, the decision height disappears until radio altitude reappears on the PFD. On approach, the GPWS provides altitude callouts at 500, 100, 50, 40, 30, 20 and 10 feet AGL. As the aircraft descends through 50 feet above the set decision height, the DH set flashes to alert the flight crew. On achieving the decision height, the DH set is replaced by an amber DH, accompanied by an oral minimums call-out, and the radio altitude changes to amber. Only the captain's decision height controls the minimums call-out. As the radio altitude reaches 10 feet, the amber DH is removed and the radio altitude readout turns back to green. System test. A radio altimeter self-test can be performed using the test button on the associated dimming panel. When the test button is pressed and held, a test readout of 40 feet is displayed until the button is released. The test can be performed on the ground or in the air. How can a decision height be set in flight? What is meant by a flashing decision height readout? Radio altimeter failure. Following failure of a radio altimeter, different indications are given dependent on whether the aircraft is above or below 2,500 feet AGL. Above 2,500 feet AGL. If a radio altimeter fails above 2,500 feet AGL, a red RA is displayed on the associated PFD. Below 2,500 feet AGL. The red RA flag is removed below 2,500 feet AGL, and radio altitude from the serviceable side is automatically displayed. A white RA appears to the right of the radio altitude display to indicate automatic reversion. This is a function of the EFIS only. There is no radio altitude transfer for any other systems. Following failure of both radio altimeters, red RA warnings are continuously displayed on both PFDs. Radio altitude miscompare. If the two radio altimeters read differently on the EFIS due to a radio problem, a yellow RA appears on both PFDs. This indication is removed when the condition no longer exists. What indicates a radio altimeter failure 100 feet before decision height is achieved? When can the radio altimeters be tested?